There is an island on Earth that looks like it belongs in a science fiction movie. Its trees don't look natural. Its landscape feels ancient, isolated, and strangely alien. At first glance, it looks like concept art from another world. Something generated by artificial intelligence or designed for a film about a distant planet. But this place is completely real. It exists in the Arabian Sea, and some of the plants growing there can be found nowhere else on Earth. For millions of years, this island evolved in near isolation, allowing nature to create shapes, textures, and ecosystems that feel almost impossible. Tonight, we're going to explore one of the strangest places on this planet, an island so unreal that many people who see it for the first time assume the images must be fake. This is Socotra, where Socotra is. Socotra is a remote island located in the Arabian Sea, south of Yemen and east of the Horn of Africa. On a map, it doesn't immediately look extraordinary, but geographical isolation is exactly what made it so unusual. For millions of years, Socotra remained separated from the surrounding mainland, cut off long enough for plants and animals to evolve in ways found almost nowhere else. That isolation turned the island into a kind of biological time capsule. Scientists often describe it as one of the most alien-looking places on Earth, not because it is lifeless, but because life there followed its own strange path. The result is an ecosystem filled with bizarre forms, twisted trunks, and umbrella-shaped trees that seem less like normal vegetation and more like something designed by a fantasy artist. 2. The trees that made it famous. The most iconic symbol of Socotra is the dragon's blood tree. At first glance, it looks almost artificial, a thick trunk rising into a dense, flat canopy shaped like a giant umbrella. Seen from a distance, entire hillsides covered with these trees look more like a planned sculpture garden than a natural forest. Their name comes from the dark red sap they produce, which for centuries was collected and used in medicine, dye, and traditional rituals. But what makes these trees so unforgettable is their silhouette. Nothing about them feels ordinary. Their strange geometry is the result of survival. The canopy helps reduce water loss and captures moisture from the air, allowing the tree to survive in harsh, dry conditions. What looks like alien design is actually adaptation refined over an immense span of time. 3. Why the island looks so unreal. Socotra doesn't look unreal because of one single feature. It feels unreal because everything about it seems slightly off from what we expect nature to look like. The trees are too symmetrical. The branches spread in strange directions. The mountains are jagged, dry, and dramatic. The colors shift between dusty earth tones, pale stone, deep green, and bright blue sea. It creates a visual combination that your brain doesn't immediately recognize as familiar Earth scenery. That is why photos of Socotra often go viral. People assume the images were edited, stylized, or generated. But the island's weirdness comes from natural isolation, not digital manipulation. It is the cumulative effect of geology, climate, and evolution operating for so long without interruption that the result now looks almost fictional. 4. A world shaped by isolation. One of the main reasons Socotra feels so different is its extraordinary rate of endemism. a very large percentage of the island's plant species exist nowhere else on Earth. That means if they disappear from Socotra, they disappear from the planet entirely. Over time, isolation allowed species to adapt specifically to the island's extreme conditions: dry seasons, rugged terrain, strong winds, and limited fresh water. Because there was little outside competition, life evolved in unusual directions. This is why so many of Socotra's plants have thick trunks, sparse leaves, strange branching, or unusual growth patterns. Evolution here was not following the visual expectations we have from forests, jungles, or deserts on the mainland. It was solving problems differently. That difference is exactly what makes the island feel so biologically alien. 5. The landscape beyond the trees. Although the dragon's blood trees get most of the attention, Socotra's terrain itself is just as important to the island's surreal identity. The landscape shifts dramatically from rocky plateaus to coastal dunes, from steep limestone mountains to isolated valleys and empty beaches. In some places, the island looks harsh and almost lunar, with pale rock and dry air dominating the horizon. In others, it suddenly opens into bright turquoise coastline that feels tropical and inviting. This contrast makes Socotra visually disorienting. It never settles into one clear category. It is not purely desert, not purely tropical, not purely mountainous. It feels like multiple worlds compressed into one isolated island. That ever-changing terrain adds to the sensation that you are looking at a place that doesn't fully belong to the same planet as everything around it. 6. Life in harsh conditions. What makes Socotra even more fascinating is that its most unusual forms are not decorative. They are functional. The strange shapes of its plants are survival strategies. Thick trunks store water. Compact leaves reduce evaporation. Wide canopies collect moisture and cast shade. Many of the island species evolved to survive long, dry periods and intense exposure to wind and sun. That is why they often appear twisted, compact, or oddly engineered. They are not trying to look dramatic. They are trying to stay alive. This is one of the reasons Socotra feels so compelling in a documentary context. The island is not just visually bizarre. It is a place where every strange silhouette is a clue to a deeper environmental pressure. Its beauty is inseparable from its difficulty. Every unusual shape is a record of adaptation. 7. Why so few places look like this? There are many beautiful islands in the world, but very few look anything like Socotra. That's because its appearance depends on a rare combination of factors. Isolation alone is not enough. Harsh climate alone is not enough. Ancient geology alone is not enough. Socotra became Socotra because all of these forces acted together for a very long time. The island had time to become visually distinct without being overwhelmed by outside ecological competition. That is why the result feels so extreme. If even one major condition had been different, the ecosystem might have evolved into something far more familiar. Instead, it became one of the clearest examples of how nature can produce forms that seem almost designed. Socotra is rare, not just because it is beautiful, but because it is the product of an unusually specific history. 8. A fragile place. Despite how timeless it looks, Socotra is not invulnerable. Its ecosystem is fragile precisely because it is so specialized. When species evolve in isolation, they often become highly adapted to narrow conditions and less resilient to sudden change. Climate pressure, overgrazing, invasive species, infrastructure growth, and human disturbance can all threaten the balance that made the island unique in the first place. That means Socotra is not just a visual wonder. It is also a conservation responsibility. The same isolation that created its strange beauty now makes it more vulnerable. Once a place like this starts to lose what made it unique, it cannot simply be replaced somewhere else. Its identity is rooted in millions of years of uninterrupted development. Protecting it means preserving one of the rarest natural experiments still visible on Earth today. 9. Why people call it alien. When people describe Socotra as alien, they do not mean that it feels empty or lifeless. They mean that it challenges the visual rules they associate with Earth. The island seems to ignore familiar categories. Its trees don't resemble forests, Its mountains don't look welcoming. Its beaches appear to belong to a different world than the plateaus above them. Even the spacing of the vegetation can feel uncanny, as if the landscape was designed with deliberate aesthetic intent. That emotional reaction matters because it explains why Socotra is so memorable. Plenty of places are beautiful. Far fewer make people pause and question whether what they're seeing is even real. Socotra does that immediately. It creates the same response as high-quality science fiction. Except it requires no imagination because the place already exists. Socotra is proof that Earth does not need special effects to create something unforgettable. Left alone for long enough, nature can produce forms so strange that they seem deliberately invented. An island of umbrella-shaped trees, sharp limestone mountains, and landscapes that feel disconnected from everything we think of as familiar. That's why Socotra stays in people's minds. It doesn't just look beautiful, it looks wrong in the most fascinating possible way, as if reality briefly stopped following its own rules. And yet everything you saw is real. No CGI, no fantasy world, no digital trick. Just isolation, time, and evolution creating one of the most surreal places on the planet. If anywhere on Earth deserves to be called another world, Socotra is one of the strongest candidates.